Okay, so our next panel is going to talk about why Sacramento is right to be a cybersecurity hub. You just met Peter, and it's fantastic to have him as part of our community. But did you know that we have quite a few cybersecurity experts here in our region? We're featuring 5 of them on our next panel, which will discuss why Sacramento is right for innovation in cybersecurity innovation. And moderating the panel is Carmen Marsh. Carmen is CEO and managing partner of Intelligenza. Hopefully I said that right. She can correct me later if I did not. And that's a company that assists clients cybersecurity risk management. She also created 100 Women in 100 Days, a free program that trains women for cybersecurity careers. And she's the founder of the Cybersecurity Woman of the Year Awards. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Carmen. So let's unmute you. Okay, Carmen, whenever you're ready. Yeah, you're still muted, Carmen.
Yeah, I'm asking her to unmute, so I think I have.
There we go.
All right, gotcha. Yeah, thank you so much, Laura and Jeff, for having us. You stole one of my lines. I was going
sorry.
to say, totally okay. I'm so proud that we have so many internationally recognized experts part of our panel today. So they live here. I think most of you work locally too, right? And we are talking about one of the topics that's really dear to me, which is starting a business in Sacramento, being one of the local startups and being an entrepreneur. So yeah, this is really something that I'm looking forward to explore with Matthew, George, and Malcolm. I think Kim is not joining us. I don't know if she'll let you know, Laura, but she will be coming. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves? You know, I can talk all day, but you can introduce yourself much better. Matthew, why don't you start?
All right. Matthew Rosenquist. I'm a cybersecurity strategist as well as a CISO. I've been in security for over 30 years and have a great passion for it. And I've lived most of that time actually here in Sacramento, or actually Folsom, in the area. And I think it's an outstanding community. And, you know, throughout the years, it's just been wonderful to be able to do cybersecurity here in the Valley. George?
My name is George Usi. I'm CEO of OmniStruct, a cyber risk company here in Sacramento. And I'm also a member of, board member of Secure the Village, a organization that is trying to build cyber guardians in local communities, including here in Sacramento, something we're ramping up here. Sacramento is definitely one of the places I could call home. I originally grew up in the Sunnyvale area before my folks brought us up here into El Dorado County during my high school years. So I do have a lot of exciting things that I'm seeing, at least in the Sacramento area, and I see a lot of potential in terms of what's possible in turning Sacramento into a cybersecurity hub.
Thanks, George. And Malcolm joined us as well.
Yeah, sorry about it. I was my mic and camera were having problems. Malcolm Harkins, I'm Chief Security and Trust Officer with an early stage web application defense company called Cymatic, and been in the Sacramento area for over 30 years and spent most of my time at Intel on the Folsom campus, where I was Worldwide Chief Security and Privacy Officer. So thanks for having us.
Yes, exciting. So why don't we just dive in? One of the things that we were going to kick off this conversation with is, why would anybody that is interested in starting a business, is perhaps in technology, start a business right here in Sacramento? So why don't we go to George, since you are actually a local business owner, and that would be a great way for you to weigh in and give some advice there.
Well, it's my belief that that history definitely repeats itself. And years ago in the 90s, the big thing was internet stability and keeping uptime of the internet. And here in the Sacramento area, as well as in the Davis area, is where a lot of the original internet standards for network management and oversight and locking down what we call management rails and internet backbones, a lot of those movements started here. And so we know we have the talent. So that's the first thing, is talent. It really is also a great place to accelerate your business. So there's all kinds of, we want to call them new accelerator opportunities. And if you're an entrepreneur, access to accelerators or things that boost your business, they exist here through local funds, as well as through what we call Bay Area transplant, folks that are coming from the Bay Area looking to start businesses at a lower cost of living. And that would be the third most important thing, is that we do have an advantage in terms of our proximity. We're close to the Bay, where you can see a lot of resources as well as take advantage of those resources. I myself recently attended a really amazing program called SLAY L-Band, which is out of Stanford University. It was very close and easy for me to attend that for an executive course, and able to upgrade myself, because that's when a lot of the business entrepreneurs that are out there, you have to figure out how to build yourself up. And those resources are available both here in Sacramento as well as in the surrounding areas.
Also funding, right? Funding has been something that has been hard to come by for the local Sacramento Valley. I know most of the venture capital was in Silicon Valley, but we are starting to see some of that coming in our region, and the city of Sacramento is one of those big contributors to that. So let's have Matthew add some advice to or reasons why would somebody want to start a business here in cybersecurity. We can't hear you, Matthew.
So there's so many, and just adding to a few that George has mentioned. But if you're starting a business here, one of the things that you really can't overlook is the fact that Sacramento is the capital, right? It's the capital of California, the most populous state in the nation with the biggest budget, right? We've got about $214 billion or over that. We've got 40 million people here that the government serves. And they're always looking for technology. And this is that hub, right? California's GDP is over $3 trillion. So anywhere in the world that you look, California is the place for technology. Technology in California contributes to over $480 billion just in our GDP alone. And then when you look at the hub of where those are, yeah, you've got Silicon Valley for a lot of innovation. You've got Sacramento here, where you've got a lot of the government and the government needs. So you've got a lot of built-in customers. You really do in this space. And they're trying to service customers that are tech savvy, right? The rest of California. You've got the infrastructure, you've got some of those tools and target audiences that are just right for the picking. And government needs innovation, right? Just like the rest of us, but they're looking to deploy it out to the rest of the state. And there are other states that look at California to say, what are you doing? What technology are you embracing? And it proliferates, not only across the US, but across the globe. So if you want to be in a focal point, an area where the world looks, look to Sacramento.
Thank you, Matthew. Very good points. And we're going to talk a little bit more about opportunities with the government for the projects later on. But before we go to the next topic, Malcolm, what do you have to say?
Well, I think Matt and George did a good job talking about the aspects of it. And much like the old adage for real estate, location, 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 right? It is the location. You're in the capital, as Matt mentioned. We're in the largest, one of the largest economies in the world, just in the state alone. And as George mentioned, the talent is here. Again, you've got Intel in Folsom. You've got old HP in Roseville. You've got, healthcare hubs. There's technology everywhere. Even with, HealthNet down in Rancho, VSP in Sacramento, they have a lot of technologists in their organizations, right? And so the talent pool is there. We've got great universities around. So, Davis, you got UOP down from Stockton. You've got, Sac State. You've got Chico not that far away. I mean, and more, plus the community colleges. So you have a young and growing and youthful talent pool, in addition to those of us that are a little bit grayer and been around it a while, right? From different things, dating back to George's thing on starting with the internet standards and some of that type of stuff, right? So I think all of that just goes back to the key thing: location, location, location. Sacramento has it. Plus, you got proximity to Tahoe, like my virtual background in the back. So why would you not want to have?
I know. Why would you go anywhere else, right?
You can be in the city anytime you want in Silicon Valley with all that traffic and all that, stuff there. But Sacramento is why I've been here for 30 plus years, because I love the area and I don't plan on leaving. So
And yeah, we're right in the middle, right? We're close to San Francisco. If you feel like you want to go to the ocean, we're right by the mountains, so it's right, we're right in between. So great location. Thank you, Malcolm. Now that we've determined that Sacramento is really ready for new cybersecurity businesses, how would somebody start? So now we know this is the good breeding ground. There's a lot of ideas. What would you say would be a good way for someone interested starting a company like this in Sacramento area? How would they go about it? Let's go with Matthew. What would you say? What would be some recommended pathway? Or even looking for innovative ideas, right? Where do you find idea that's going to be solid, could become a solid business?
Well, I mean, there's so many different needs across the landscape of cybersecurity and privacy, and you've got new technologies, AI and blockchain and everything else, and all of those need some level, some heartbeat of security to protect and to maintain a level of trust, right? We are all embracing technology more and more every day. And so we need to maintain that trust. That trust, one of the tenets is really, is it secure? And so there are phenomenal amounts of needs, more than that's being filled probably in our lifetime. So it really comes down to looking at the different technologies. And again, you've got all these big tech companies around here. You've got all the people that have been working there for 10, 15, 20 years. And many of them looking, hey, I don't want to work for a big company anymore. I want to work for a small one, or I want to innovate. You've got startup accelerators, you've got maker groups, you've got incubators out there that help, right? They help refine ideas. And in many cases, you may go in with one idea and simply bouncing off the other people in the space, you realize, what? There's a better idea, or there's somewhere else that I have a passion or a greater need that I can fulfill. So part of it is taking that first step and really reaching out to your community, the technologies that you know and love or want to use, or the frustrations that you have. I'm a firm believer that innovation is really drawn from frustration, right? With the things that you have to deal with.
The business problem, yeah.
Yes. And if it frustrates you, chances are it frustrates somebody else. So the first step is really reaching out to those other people and insights within the community and seeing what are those opportunities, what are those things that need to get fixed. Find that squeaky wheel.
Thank you, Matthew. Super great points. George, I know last time we talked, you had some idea about the roadmaps. You had your own way of road mapping that, for someone who has ideas, but how do they approach that? So why don't you speak a little bit to that?
I think the most important thing, and I'm going to paint a little bit of a picture, that I'm going to make the assumption that as an entrepreneur, you're looking at what essentially is your first jump, and maybe your second, but almost certainly your first jump into something that you think solves a problem. And so believing in that and having the right, what we call mindset. Mindset is so important, because it really is important that you understand that owning a business and starting a business is a combination, and pardon the expression in cybersecurity, it's a combination of an air war and a ground war. So you have mindset and footprint, and both have to be balanced. Mindset comes first. What are you passionate about? Then you have to understand research. Is there a need for my product? And you have people in this community, a lot of us with gray hair, who have significant contacts and relationships, not just in Sacramento, but throughout the globe. Yeah, so try to find where those people are. And so there are a lot of places you can go. For example, I work out of a facility called Granite City Co-working in Folsom. And there are all kinds of entrepreneurs starting businesses here. And they come to me relatively frequently. There's even an initiative called The Tribe that they're running out of this co-working space. And you're going to see something similar in other kinds of spaces, from Hacker Lab, I imagine, and some of the other initiatives like Startup Sac. Those are important places to be. So by you being here, I feel like you're already aware of that. And then the third is you need to get ahead of the change. Look at what you're doing and make sure that you're getting ahead of that change, that you're not entering into something that is an existing market that's already been established. So be aware of what you're offering, and if it can truly disrupt and differentiate, then the funding comes a lot easier. So those would be the three things I would focus on.
Thank you, George. I can so much relate to your roadmap. And it's not easy starting a business, but it's so rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, and you'll find the most difficult thing is that the cultural piece, which is tied to mindset. So if you can bring people on board with you who know what to do without being told what to do, and who can own the job so the job owns them, you're way ahead of everybody else.
Yes, very great point. Thanks, George. Anything you want to add, Malcolm, before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, so I'll put on my buyer hat, right? So I've run security now in organizations, big and small, for over 20 years. So I've spent a ton of money on security solutions and products and services. And what I would tell people is they need to deliver a real business outcome. Don't sell me a feature because you think it's cool. Don't give me a tool that doesn't do what it says it's going to do. Don't make it complex for me. And the three business outcomes I've always looked for when I've bought a service or a capability are on three vectors. One, risk. A good security product creates a demonstrable and sustainable bend in the curve of risk. If it doesn't do that, it ain't a good product. The second thing is a great security product will lower the risk, but will allow me to long-term lower my total cost of controls. Me spending money on security in an organization doesn't add to that organization's net income. And so a great product will lower risk and lower cost. And then the third one is there's not many security solutions out there that users in business say help them perform their job. So there's a notion that I call friction. If you can reduce the friction on the business velocity and reduce the friction on the customer journey, then you have a hero product when you do all three of those. And for me, I will always buy something that does all three of them. I'll be semi-interested in doing something that solves two of the problems. And by and large, if it just solves one of them, I don't want it.
That is super important, because we discussed last time how many products are on the market, they do the same thing, or they claim to do the same thing, but they don't really, meet all those needs that you just listed. So this is really good advice. Thank you, Malcolm. So the next topic we were going to, and we kind of started to talk about that prior to that, was where would somebody go now that you have an idea, you've vetted idea, you've done your market research, you're ready to go, and now you have to think about, where am I going to get business? Where are the projects going to come from? Who are those resources that will provide business to me or buy from me, basically? So any thoughts on that, Matthew?
Well, again, there's so many good steps that you can take. And depending on what you're offering, it really kind of depends. Building up a good social network and having good credibility. And Malcolm kind of touched on this a little bit, right? When you're able to solve risk and cost and usability or reduce friction, you've got a huge winner. But if nobody knows about you or nobody trusts you, it's really tough to get in the front door. So building your credibility and your trust really from day one. And one of the things that is a huge pet peeve of myself and all my colleagues, right, is the bad marketing or salesmanship, right? Oh, I'm going to solve your security problems. I'm going to make these outlandish claims just to get your attention, or to claim something that you're really not going to deliver. And once you burn those bridges, because we're in security, trust matters to us, you're never going to get our ear again. So even before you get to that point, you better start building your reputation. You better make sure that you know what you're saying and what you can really deliver. Again, there is no silver bullet. We don't expect a silver bullet, but we need to understand, okay, practically, what can you deliver? What can be sustained? And how does it work with the other products and services that we have? And most good customers, actually most people in the industry, are willing to share with you. I look at least 2, sometimes 3 times a week at new different technologies and investment groups and so on and so forth. And we give feedback. And so whatever you develop may not be perfect, but you're going to start getting the feedback if you've got a good reputation. People will spend the time and take that feedback on and see how it can help you change, modify, or improve whatever you're offering to better align with the current and the future needs of your intended audience.
Absolutely. And building that community early and getting to know people that are in the field can help you get there. You're going to have opportunity to discuss and ask questions. If you're trying to vet or make or improve your product, if you're a product company, it's good to collaborate with experts in the area and have them. And sometimes you may even offer a free trials and free services or whatever it is, just to gain that trust that Matthew was talking about, right? You need to establish yourself, your product, your services, and trust. It's very important. So really good points. So George, I know you've done business with government. We're talking about business opportunities for the new businesses. So what's your experience? And I know for the last 15 years, probably you've been working with government, right? So being in Sacramento,
Yes.
there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have worked in both private sector and public sector, and even to survive the IOU crisis, if anyone remembers that, from 2008.
Oh, I remember that. Yes, yes.
We had a couple of $1 million in IOUs, and we're looking at our balance sheet going, uh-oh. But getting back to the core here is, you absolutely need to understand the paradox of the chicken or the egg. What comes first, right? You've got buyers who want proof that you've done it before, but you've never sold to anybody. So how do you start? Right? It is the biggest problem that every business owner, especially new entrepreneur, has to face, whether they're starting a new brand or if they are introducing a new line. And generally the answer, especially in this area, has been be a helper, right? Be willing to give away a little bit in order to see a long-term return. You need those references, right? So if you're truly at the ground level trying to build up those customers, you will have to help people, and that is part of building credibility. The other thing is that to be successful as a helper, you have to tell good stories, because even offering something for free doesn't mean Malcolm's going to say yes or Matt's going to say yes, right? Because you have to say, I think Malcolm said it very well, you need outcomes and you need to smack down 2 or 3 objectives if you can, right? So even giving it away. So I've been in situations where I've seen entrepreneurs build the field of dreams, pardon the expression to Kevin Costner in his movie, but it's true. You do have to make sure that that field of dreams function really requires good storytelling around how your product solves those solutions.
Yes, thank you, George. And it sounds like Malcolm can be a really good quality control there. So reach out to him once you're at the point to have that conversation.
But to kind of add to both of them, and even, I know Matthew knows this. I've been in startups now for a while and stuff like that. Again, getting advisors, people who actually have sat in the seat of a chief security officer, chief information security officer, that will add credibility, right? It'll add reach. And then I think George said it perfectly on storytelling. In every field, a confused mind never buys, right? So if you're confusing people in your messages and it's not clear, they're never going to buy. And so you kind of have to always have in what I'd say in your hip pocket, what I call a 33-30. What's your 30-second sound bite? What's your 3-minute elevator pitch? And what's your 30-minute deep dive? Because then you can actually, and all of those things need to build on each other in a way that doesn't confuse the mind of the potential buyer.
Clarity is super important, whether, whatever you're offering, whether it's the services or a product. Be clear and show how you are going to solve a specific business problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, and to build on what Malcolm said, right? Advisory boards, even for small startups, are hugely important. There probably are not 1 or 2 founders out there that know it all, get it all, and have all the right contacts. So forming an advisory board and getting people on those that can fill those gaps and provide those insights, and even behind closed doors, give that critical feedback, that constructive feedback. And good advisors will help you with your 33-30, right? They will help you with the communication. They will show you the nuances of not only the terminology, but how you need to approach, right? What are your strengths and weaknesses and everything else? Good advisors are tremendously valuable. And I know Malcolm is on a whole bunch of advisory boards. I'm on a ton of them as well. Keep in mind, we don't accept, every offer for an advisory board. But we give, I'm sure Malcolm does. I know I do. I give feedback.
They're a great go-to-market
one
accelerators.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So get the feedback. So reach out to the community. And even if someone that you want on your board won't be on it or can't be on it, get their feedback, because that is hugely valuable, hugely valuable.
Hugely valuable. I agree. And it adds to your credibility of your product or services. And yeah, it closes those gaps, right, that you may have on a team. A lot of times the startup team is very small. Sometimes there's only 2 people, right? So yeah, it's as much advice as you can get, and have a very strong advisory board is super important. So now with our next topic, where would you send people in Sacramento area? We talk about the list of places, or, even finding a mentors. And we can provide list in I don't know, in a Word document or something after this panel. But let's talk a little bit about where to reach to, or who to reach to. George, any ideas?
Well, the first place that you want to look is amongst your local network. Okay, so people and ask them who they know or what they know and what resources might be available, and getting a hold of the right people as well. And clearly, if you're talking to somebody who is in a very specific line of work where your product may not be a good fit, they might have some good recommendations, but you need to make sure that you're spending your time wisely. So talk to the right people. Okay? And then beyond that, you want to reach out to any of the local, there's these things called accelerators, and I'm sure anyone that's been in the industry long enough knows that accelerators do matter. They can help you. And they exist on many levels. There's many that are virtual as well. Now that we're really truly living in an internet delivered world, just remember that there's resources all over the globe as well. And by tapping those resources, you can make Sacramento stronger as well. And that's really what's always necessary. If Sacramento is going to be a good cybersecurity hub, then it takes a village to make that happen. And so people that are looking at starting a business here, the more resources that you're able to bring to the table, the stronger our community will be and the more successful you will be as well.
Yes, and Security Village is one of those community, what would you say, community companies that are, or community organizer where you get a lot of resources. So I don't know if you want to say a couple words about that.
That initiative is a Los Angeles-based initiative that is gaining a lot of attention in the LA community for what essentially is a people-centered movement around cybersecurity. And frequently, if you hang out with cybersecurity folks, you get a lot of the same, I call them TLAs, three-letter acronyms. We can get pretty geeky on you. It's easy for maybe an attorney that's trying to, difficult maybe for an attorney that's trying to understand breach law or privacy law to have a discussion with somebody in cybersecurity. And so the idea behind Secure the Village is to bring all of these different industries together and make the Los Angeles community better. And what's interesting is, why is that important in LA? Well, LA, if you want to talk cybersecurity in LA, you better be talking entertainment. You better know the ins and outs of how there's 36 different versions of movies created. Did you know that? They create 36 versions of movies because they put watermarks in each movie so they know if they get hacked, they know which market that was distributed, it gets lost. Who would know that? The LA community. And so their needs are very unique to that security problem. And so security products that work there may not work in other places. And so that community initiative of knowing your community and your industry does become important. And so that concept of connecting those people together makes the community stronger, but that can also be cascaded throughout the nation, which is what they're trying to do with Secure the Village, is recreate that elsewhere.
Yeah, makes sense. Matthew, I know you always have a lot of suggestions on how people connect with others. And when to
Not always good though. So that's the problem. Is it quantity, quality you want? Be quiet, Malcolm. You don't get to comment. Well, I mean, look at, startup sac.com, right? I mean, the fact that we're all here, the fact that we're all talking, the fact that we've got sponsors, and on that website, it talks about a whole bunch of different resources that are available and tracks. And there's no one person that would know all of that. So there are communities out there, and there's resources that have already gone down this path. So don't try and forge the trail by yourself. Leverage what other people and other experts have done. And that's part of that whole accelerators and makers and incubators community. Again, you're leveraging other people's insights, the people that are a few steps ahead of you, the people that are in tangential kind of technologies that can intersect and help you. And you'll also hear about the mistakes, right? And again, all of that gives you that leg forward. One of the most important resources you have as a startup is your time. And you can't be making a lot of mistakes, and you shouldn't be falling into the pitfalls that other people have already, put signposts around. So again, it's a matter of working with your community, understanding for the technology or the services that you're developing, right? Working within that community as well, and making those steps forward, getting organized, having your goals, and pursuing them relentlessly. And again, the community will sometimes give you that emotional and mental push. Everybody has a bad day. Everybody wants to give up. And again, when you surround yourself with other entrepreneurs and other people, and you get to see the successes of the people before you, that keeps that internal spirit going. So yes, we need to hire good tech talent. Yes, we need to have good support services, lawyers and accountants and everything else. Yes, we need to have great ideas. Yes, we need to have passion, right? But we also need that community support to help keep us going.
Yes, and that takes a while. I can speak to my own path. I would say the first couple of years, that is big part of my time was connecting with people, getting to know them, building relationships, and asking if I can speak there or if I can do, just try to help them in order for them to get to know me. So then they would give me a chance to explain to what I'm doing. So just something to think, keep in mind.
In fact, you hosted a dinner several years ago. I remember drinks or appetizers, and you brought together a whole bunch of people on some interesting topics. It wasn't a sales pitch or anything. It was getting people in the community together to talk. And that's tremendously valuable. And, I think that's helped.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And of course, you never stop doing that. I'm sure George can speak to that too. You continue building, you maintain existing relationship, but also build new ones, and you keep learning. You have to keep learning, as an entrepreneur, not just professional, all professionals as well, but, just as much, you have to stay on top of things as a business owner. Malcolm, you want to add anything to this?
I think, Matthew made some really good points. I think the other thing in terms of areas to perhaps go look at, again, I'm a Davis grad, went to the Graduate School of Management there. Sac State might have something similar, but again, there's educational opportunities. Davis, under the Graduate School of Management, has an entrepreneurship academy, and this whole thing called a Big Bang, right? Where, they're doing it across multiple sectors. So you can even go down an academic route sometimes in the right business school and then launch yourself, because you might be a technologist and you don't have the business acumen, right? You might need some of that rounding out of skills. And again, I would look to go, figure out how to get into a community that's helping entrepreneurs round out their skill set so they can be successful.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think we should let our audience ask you questions, but before we do that, one last thing, one single advice you would give somebody who is thinking about starting a business in cybersecurity. Matthew, go.
Follow your passion, whether it originates from frustration or not. Follow your passion, because there will be up days and down days, and if you're not committed, you're not passionate, it becomes a grind. And it has to be deep inside of you.
Thank you, Matthew. George.
Think big. Think big. Okay? That will help drive your passion. To help you think big, there's 2 pieces of material that I would suggest: good reads, Built to Last, as well as Scaling Up Excellence, are 2 exceptional reads with lessons on how to drive your business.
Wonderful, thank you. Malcolm, one piece of advice.
Don't chase the money. If you're just doing a cybersecurity thing to make money, you don't have the wrong purpose. This is a social responsibility. It's an ethical issue. It's a societal risk. The World Economic Forum Risk Report for several years in a row now puts cybersecurity risk up there with climate change, aging populations. So if you're just trying to make a dime, don't do it. You won't be genuine. If you really care about people, you care about technology's ability to connect and enrich lives, to create social and economic benefit, and you see the cyber risk issues putting at risk what technology can do to change the world, that's why you should do it. And if you're not doing it for that reason, don't do it.
Yeah. And if you don't do it that way, people will be able to tell.
Very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly.
Definitely.
You're not going to fool anybody, just so you know. We see them all the time. You're easy to pick out.
That's why I said it, because I've seen enough of them. They get shown the door.
Yep.
All great points. Thank you so much, all of you. Why don't we open the floor to questions? And I don't know, Laura, do you want to read questions for the panels? I can't really, let's see, maybe I can see it. Oh, okay.
We don't have any questions yet. So.
All right, let's get some questions, everyone.
To ask some questions. You can see there's at the bottom of your screen, click on that, and you can type in your question. That's going to be the best way for us to handle it. We have a little under 10 minutes for questions here. If we don't get a question pretty quick here, you guys might have to think of something else you want to say that maybe you haven't mentioned yet.
That's never a problem with this group, so that's why I love having them involved. So
be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tony Jones, who'll be presenting later today with Waterhand Futures, he wants to know, how does the Sacramento ecosystem for cyber compare with other regions?
I'll give you guys an answer, because I've done a lot of startups. I do advisory work for organizations in a lot of regions. I'd say we're embryonic, to be honest. You know, certainly the Bay Area has a big hub. If you go outside of the US, Israel is enormous in this space. You go even in Southern California, the company that I worked for before, Silent, started there. CrowdStrike started there. So you've got stuff in kind of that LA basin. I do advisory work for companies in Cleveland, Minneapolis, and stuff like that. Yeah, Matthew's looking like, really? There?
Cleveland, really?
Yeah, so
Austin, yes. Cleveland, okay.
Yeah. So I would say we're early, but being a first mover is a great thing to do, right? So, but I would say we're early relative to other spots: Boston, DC,
New York.
Boston, New York. So again, you go to the bigger cities where you've got stuff. They've been doing this for a long time, but again, like I said, you're starting to see Cleveland, Minneapolis, stuff like that. Why isn't Sacramento on that map? And we should put it there, right?
Yes, and after this showcase, I bet we'll be on the map. All right, we've got another question from Kim White. How do you see the areas of security and privacy coming together for COVID? For example, contact tracing.
I'll take a shot at this. So, you know, we are becoming a much more digitally connected society. And therefore, the devices and the expectations we have and the services that we garner, whether it be from our healthcare or service providers, our government, our even connecting with our own families, right? We're tied together with this invisible digital string, right, on this network. And so when it comes to things like COVID, which impacts us all and potentially, you know, it impacts us in many different ways, whether it be our job or you know, our personal health, we're going to see technology being used as tools to help that. And whether it be for contact tracing, whether it be for communication for healthcare or remote healthcare, whether it be enabling people to still work and get their paycheck and things of that sort, or be able to still communicate with family members that you need to keep a close eye on. Technology is going to play a more important role as people begin to use it. And because of that, we become more reliant on it, and therefore it needs to be more secure. Right? There are less failovers. We are putting a lot more effort in using technology to communicate. We're on a virtual bridge right now, right? If COVID hadn't hit, we would all be in a building on a stage talking. So the world is rapidly adapting. People are working from home. And so again, security and trust become paramount. So I don't see a separation of security with technology. It must be embedded. It must be woven in upon inception. And that just means the demand for security capabilities, features, support, services, and everything else goes up as fast as technology innovation and adoption goes.
I would just add to Matthew's comments. He's completely right. But all technology, all systems has the potential to create unintentional harm. Security technologies are no different. And so you also have to think, if you're going to develop and do security solutions, you have to think about how your solution could actually cause harm or be weaponized in different ways, and not just sell a security solution. That's, again, a big failing of a lot of security companies. They think that because they've sold a security product and created a security product, they don't actually have to think about the threat models and other implications of that technology. And contact tracing, you know, obviously has a lot of slippery slopes with privacy and stuff. So we have to be cognizant of the issues that security solutions might also create.
Right. So the next question is from Heath Spencer with Traitware, who will be presenting later today. He says, so pursuing a passion is great, but the moment you take investor money to fund your passion, how do you balance not doing it for the money? He agrees that it has to be done to help the greater good, but sadly, it costs a lot to do so.
Yeah, well, I agree. But again, it becomes, when I made that statement, again, I'm a former finance guy, right? Cash is king, need to make money. But if you're not, I'll give you a real example. I know, and I would bet that many of the security solutions you guys have all bought are less than what they could be because those security companies are milking their cash cows. And they're not giving you the best capability they could because they make more money when you have a problem and then you have to buy something else from them, right? That is where I think that the security industry has failed because it profits from the insecurity of computing. And if you're trying to profit from that insecurity by perpetuating problems and not solving them, again, people make a lot of money doing it. And I think if you have the right investors, you have the right purpose, you'll be able to make money and deliver outcomes for your customers.
Yeah. Beware of those upsell companies who will, you know, here's the base product. Now there's 50 add-ons that we want to upsell you. Right.
And
to me, it's they've decided to not give you what you really need and just squeeze more money. Right.
Okay, I'm going to combine these two questions. We have one from Garrett. He's specifically to Malcolm and Matthew.
Hey, Garrett, long time no see.
He wants to know what has been your greatest challenge and or greatest reward since, quote, graduating, leaving Intel. But then there's another question from, I believe Nathan is a student. He says, what was the biggest challenge our panelists went through in their early careers and what process did they take to find the best solution? So I think you can kind of combine those two.
Do you want to go, Matt, or do you want me to go first?
No, start us off, Malcolm.
You know, so I think, you know, greatest, the greatest challenge that I had over the past number of years, and you guys both worked with me, honestly, was leaving my team at Intel. I loved that team. I loved that company. That actually was, and still to this day, is probably my greatest challenge, leaving that behind. At the same time, believe it or not, it's also been the greatest reward, and you know, actually not even financially as much as it is going into the security industry and trying to upend control paradigms that I thought were flawed for a long time, and being able to lean in on that stuff and kind of pursue that passion to protect things. Has been incredibly rewarding, frustrating as heck as all could be at times, but that's been the greatest reward. And I'd say in terms of biggest thing I learned earlier in my career, and Garrett and Matthew both know this, or anybody else who knows me on this, my mouth goes sometimes before my brain engages, which has worked for me and against me. And I learned from Jerzy Rube, who is just retired from Intel, back when I had done security for a couple of years, took a detour and came back. Let's just say I was highly negative on prior regimes that had made decisions. They're smiling and I go, what dumbass made that decision, or stuff like that. And Jerzy flew down from Oregon to Folsom and sat me down and taught me a lesson. He told me I was better than that. I didn't need to build myself up by poking at the past. And so I learned I need to respect the past, because there were good people who were trying to do good work. And even though the decisions or the approach may have been flawed or faulty, I shouldn't take that frustration out on that. I should be focusing forward with a level of hope and passion, and not the negativity. So that's probably the biggest lessons I learned over the past 15, 20 years.
Yeah. For me, again, I mean, I started, it was over almost 32 years ago, doing security, and it was a long time ago. And it was before even the term cybersecurity came into about. It was even before information security really came about. And back then, it was a dead end field. It was buried so deep within an organization, and there was no upward mobility. And either I was stupid, or I like to say passionate, I chose to stick with it because I did enjoy it. I liked the meaningfulness of it personally, internally. And fortunate for me, it actually turned out to be a pretty good career decision to stick with security, right? It's blossomed a little bit. But if we jump ahead, and when I left Intel, a few years ago, after 24, almost 25 years there, my personal motivations really haven't changed. My goal is to make the industry better, to make technology that we all use more trustworthy. And it's not easy, but it's finding, with the time that I have, where can I make the biggest bang? Is it on advisory boards or board of directors, or is it, CISO, or is it speaking to audiences? Well, it's a little bit of it all. And so right now it's cherry picking with the time that I have to say, how can I help all the industry, whether it's people that are trying to get degrees or trying to get jobs or skill sets, whether it's companies that are trying to develop new technologies, whether it's nation states or governments that are trying to protect themselves and still provide services to their citizens, right? Or is it just deep research and understanding, what are the bad guys doing, right? Who are the new bad guys? What are the capabilities? What's coming next? Right, all those different spaces. So it's a challenge, it's a blessing, but it all ties back to that original passion that I had. I love this stuff. And there's not been a day that I haven't. Even in dealing with people I didn't like, I still love this stuff.
George or Carmen, did you want to answer that question at all?
I can say a couple words, and that it resonates with me what Matthew was saying. You gotta love this stuff because it's not easy, and it's so many ups and downs. There's so many challenges, and sometimes you're blamed for things where you just couldn't solve. You couldn't solve. There are things that cannot be solved, and if you are in a position in a company, especially towards the upper management, or being a CISO, is like. Fingers are at you all the time, and so, but you gotta be okay with that. You gotta be okay, get through it, and and that takes love for things you do. So that's, I agree with Matthew, definitely.
I think, so in my experience, and mind you, I came from service provider environments in the 90s. I worked for NTT. At the time, the company was called Vario, and we had what essentially was this mindset that you own your mistakes and you learn from them. Which was, in terms of all the lessons that I've learned, that was something that was always critically important, because you can't get better. The challenge is that you don't want to make a mistake, or screw it up, as we would say, when you're already halfway down the road. So a lot of the great companies in our past have known to at least get ahead of something and understand, get it in a lab if you have the resources to do that. If not, make sure you get the whole team together. It's not just about you. It's about all the people that are working with you. And if you're a startup and it's just you, it really isn't just you. You have other people around you that can become part of your team, even in an advisement capacity, who believe in the problem that you're solving or believe in the product that you believe in, especially if it's something that solves a big, big problem. But learn from those mistakes. You'll only get better, and tell people, yeah, I made a mistake here. And this is what I'm going to correct.
That's the keys right there, owning your mistakes, and do better, right? And keep going.
Yeah, and especially with your people, right? The people that work around you. If you make a mistake with another person, address it right away and have a conversation with them, because your people are what make the difference. The people around you, whether it's your direct report or if you're starting the company, is you do need to be altruistic to some degree. You have to understand what's going on. As your company grows, you're going to lose more of that visibility. But in startup mode, you can see everything. You should be able to see everything. So just be aware of those, that people need guidance. And so learn from those mistakes if you make them with people, because you'll probably guide them incorrectly. especially if it's a new field for you as an entrepreneur. It's like, oh, I've never done marketing before, you know. So how do you attack that?
You can be a risk taker without making mistakes, right? And that's the thing. When you're business owners, you are going to take risks, huge, huge risks, and you are going to make mistakes. Own those, learn from those, and make things better.
Okay, I'm going to call attention to one question in the chat, but I'm going to ask our panelists after this session is over, if you could go into the Q&A and answer Kirk's question, because I think it's rather detailed and we don't have that much time for it. So I'm just going to read that question so people can be thinking about it. And then I have one last question. So Kirk's question is, does anyone have prerogatives about how startup cybersecurity companies can reach out for beta testing and demo model users, Sacramento, NorCal area, HPC, which I don't know what that means, and related facilities. So, and then he has an add-on to that, maybe including ITER and DOD, something, something, something. So if you guys wouldn't mind, when we end the panel, you should be able to go into the Q&A. The last question I'm going to ask, and several people asked it kind of a similar question, is from Ken Carrick, and Anthony Jones and Dave Petrie had similar questions. But he says, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Sacramento in growing the cyber talent and technology in the region? And how can people like myself help promote retaining the talent and technology in the region? I've been doing this for 35 plus years, and it's time to pass on the passion. So you guys got any quick answers to that one before we wrap up the panel?
Okay, well, for me, I think, you know, we've got some of it, but I'll be blunt, even on the internal security stuff, the security community in Sacramento doesn't bind itself together like you've got in other areas. Now, Matthew, myself, and some others have recently just gotten together to create a kind of chief information security officer, security executive collaboration forum. But we've been weak. ISSA barely exists here. FBI InfraGard barely exists here. Now, you know, having been a security executive in this region, I can also own that and say I failed to deliver that community here. But I think if we can do that, we'll be able to help create a vibrant talent pool, but it's a leadership issue. And, you know, and those of us, including myself, that had some leadership roles that were in the region, I was so focused on other things, I didn't actually think about building that community here. And I probably should have, but I think if we can do that, that will help.
Yeah, and I agree with Malcolm. I mean, organizations like ISA or ISSA, InfraGard, things of that, ISAC, all of those really help. You've got other communities around the world, whether it be Atlanta or Phoenix, and it's outstanding down there, right? And it really comes down to us contributing, because it takes people to be there to work and collaborate. But again, there's tremendous benefits, because now you're making the contacts, you're understanding what the real problems are, and being able to get contacts into different organizations and groups and meeting peers. So we all owe it to ourselves, right? We won't live forever. We have to hand down to the next generation, which means we have an obligation to help that next generation make cybersecurity in Sacramento better. We all have a role in to play in that. So I would say spend some time contributing to the community and communicate and advocate for it.
Yeah,
And I will keep inviting, yeah, I'm sorry, George. I'm gonna keep inviting all of you for this panel. You know, I organized many cybersecurity events in the Sacramento area. So connect with all of us, because, you know, Matthew, George, Malcolm, they're all part of these events. And this is how you grow community. Come join us, collaborate with us, talk to us, and, you know, we'll make it stronger.
Yeah, and what I was mentioning is that going back to my reference of what essentially is the ground war versus the air war, in cybersecurity, we've been fighting a ground war for many years. So part of that air war is the community. Part of that air war is the gap that exists between executives who think cybersecurity strategy is perfect And most of the IT staff and the people who work for the company that think otherwise. I think it was an ISACA survey that came out recently, and the gap was tremendous. That's the air war component, and community is part of that answer. And so just to reiterate what both Malcolm and Matthew said, it's important to come together and make sure that we're helping each other. And if there's anything that's a mistake that I've learned from is, when you do feel like you're going 1,000 miles an hour, you feel like you've got kind of got your head in the ground. So as a startup, you're going to feel like that. I don't have time to look up, is what you're going to say to yourself. So don't forget that little bit of community involvement will reap exponential rewards for you, in making sure you're staying in touch with those that have traveled the path. And that's also part of the new thinking. This new air war, what we call cyber risk, is a big part of the challenge. There is even a movement globally that's happening about this mindset problem. It's interesting. We have this United Nations of the physical security that exists, or within the global community. Yet there's no cyber UN. There is a movement to do that right now at an organization called cyberstability.org, where all of the nations, internet scientists and security specialists and in the military as well, got together and said, we need norms. And so as an innovator, look for those kinds of things that are happening as part of that air war. That's probably where a lot of the opportunity will be in the future, but don't give up on the ground war either. We're still in the trenches trying to get this done. So there's opportunity in both areas, which is one of the main reasons why we have such a huge opportunity here. We are the tip of the spear of the air war of legislation and breach law. Every other state looks to Sacramento, folks.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We are way ahead of the change. You could very easily take a trip downtown, and there's a number of places you can go. You can hear lobbyists talking about what's coming. So be aware, why are we in the hot spot? That's one of the many reasons why, is we're already ahead of the change from that regulation perspective, because it's starting here in most parts.
And everybody should know CCPA, they're proposing changes to it, right? The next layer of controls, and it's open to the public. If you want to be part of it, contribute, right? Give your thoughts, give your recommendations. Again, be part of the solution. You'll build a community.
Agreeable. And then I think there was one question that I saw that popped in about COVID testing. I think we talked to it briefly. What do you do with this intersection of privacy and COVID testing and security? And funny enough, just this past week, there's been another set of regulations, a third round of adjustments by our state, I believe the Attorney General's office. And one of them is make sure that you're posting a sign up in your lobby that talks about your COVID testing. Hey, warning. So look to those kinds of changes that are happening in legislation as well as you operate your businesses and as you're helping your customers, because that becomes opportunity as well for the innovators. So that's the change you need to look for.
This has been a great discussion. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Again, I'd ask our panelists to go look at the Q&A and answer some of the unanswered questions if you have time. Thank you so much, Carmen. Beautiful job moderating as well as adding your great knowledge. And thank you to the rest of the panel as well.